Transferable skills.
From Cackle Media, this is Transferable Skills. I'm Noah Mishkin. Today's guest is Jeremy Geller, who shares quite a unique story. Yes, he grew up in a family that had a family business. His real story is considering his options, going into following in the family footsteps and joining the family business, or taking a different route, his own path. His story is one that I hope resonates and is helpful for a lot of people who are listening and joining us. It's all about going from addiction, substance abuse, 10 years of sobriety into being an addiction counselor. I hope you enjoy and have a lot of takeaways from this conversation. Jeremy, great to have you here. What you're doing now is directly reflective of where you came from and a very important conversation altogether. So I'm excited to have you here today and for sharing your journey.
Thanks, Noah. Appreciate it.
Tell us where you're at.
Yeah.
What are you doing now? And we can work backwards of how you got here.
So right now I am a certified alcohol and drug counselor, also known as a CADC, pretty easy acronym there. And I'm also pursuing my master's in social work. LCSW is the goal. I'd say, I'm a mixture of a therapist, but what kind of brought me here was, I think, my own recovery journey, right? When June celebrated 10 years of sobriety, I remember thinking, driving home from my treatment stay, my partial hospitalization, which was like a 9 to 3 program 5 days a week. I remember thinking to myself, it would be really cool to be 1 year sober. That in my mind was that was the goal. I wanted to get that 1 year coin. I thought about that. And then looking back on it 10 years later, being wow, that seems so far away. And 10 years feels so short, as I've gone through it, as I've lived it, I've experienced it. And 1 year just became 2 and 2 became 3.
We could probably talk for about 2 or 3 hours just about what you just said, because a lot of principles for life in that,
right.
Especially this idea of you can have a 10-year vision, but if you make that your immediate goal that you're laddering towards and it's all you're focused on, it might be too big of a goal to try to tackle. But you have these macro milestones. You got to start with something that's digestible that you can actually tackle, and then you compound that success and you build that traction. So congratulations again. 10 years is a tremendous feat.
Yeah.
How far into your partial hospitalization were you when you had that hopes and dream?
That journey was 3 months, 4 months in itself of stepping down and going from PHP to IOP, intensive outpatient to continuing care. I don't know when that actual dream kind of happened, but I think the point is that I started to dream again. You asked me how I got here, right? How did I get to becoming a substance abuse counselor? Is I think that I had this time where I was pre and post sobriety. And pre-sobriety, my life was on autopilot. I was good at sports. I had a lot of friends. Everything was easy. I had a family business in my name. I was the only boy. I constantly had been told their name is on the door. So I went to college and I got a degree to get a degree. I didn't have a vision of anything that was beyond that point. There was no dreams. It was everything that was in front of me, the next basketball game, the next girlfriend, the next time with my friends, next time with my family. My story's already written for me. It's just how do I not completely screw it up?
The pitfalls of being overprescribed. There's no individual creativity or voice, and that can sometimes be daunting. One might look at it, and for some people, it is a privilege to say, I have all this going for me. And to others, it can equally be detrimental in that I'm not sure that this is the path I want, but it's the one that apparently everyone's telling me I have to do. There's probably a lot of anxiety surrounding that, as well as, I don't know. I don't want to use the word shame, but is it guilt? Is the word guilt? Is it guilt that this is being given to me and this is the path that if I want it, I can have it, but I don't necessarily know if I want that exact thing?
So I think guilt is an interesting point that I want to bring up, because somebody even asked me yesterday, what is my motivation every day? And one of the things I said was guilt. But at the time, it was definitely not guilt. I didn't even know guilt because I hadn't faced any adversity. It was almost like you hadn't had this breakthrough to understand what it took to to build, to work hard. And then I think when I started working in diamonds for my father, that was the moment where like that guilt kind of arose and made me realize like, I'm not where I'm supposed to be, because I thought about all of the time that it took him to build this by himself, to become this in this position. And then I realized like, holy crap, I'm going to take this over and I'm going to run into the ground. Like I truly, genuinely felt like I did not have the investment in it. I wasn't ready to throw my complete weight behind it and go down that path that he had spent many years doing by himself, and to where it is today, that I had the opportunity to one day maybe take it over, that I realized that this is not for me. But the scary part was that I didn't know what was next. I was pretty like sure that I didn't have what it took to take that over and be successful in that role. And it doesn't mean that I like wasn't capable of it. I just thought at the time, I was like, this is not gonna go the way I want it to. Like, I don't know what the buy-in is. Like, I see my father working this hard. Like, I'm not feeling this on a day-to-day basis. You know, partially it was probably because I was using. I think partially like I was using because I was under the pressure. I think there was a lot of factors that were going on at the time that made me like decide to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And then leaving was like the precipitating factor of going on to the addiction journey and then like needing help. And then that was kind of like definitely like a overhaul. Like I remodeled like my whole life, like, cause I had all those pressures were removed. And now it was like, where do I stand? Like, what do I even value? What do I care about? What are the things that I want to do in this world that will make some money, but also give me some purpose in this life?
Were you looking for your own identity?
100%.
Yeah.
And it sounds sad because I will say that my childhood like was fantastic. I felt like I was in high school, like I felt like I was a celebrity in my own community. But I'm also a basketball coach. But I realized that after a while, I didn't like playing basketball. I liked what playing basketball did for me.
Yeah.
What it gave me rather than playing basketball. And I was like, once I was like, well, I'm getting a little old here. Like I'm not as good, and it's not giving me things, and the crowd isn't cheering.
That's a different form of addiction. It's the addicted to the pride that you have on that court of people cheering you on and giving you instant gratification and praise for your accolades, for your performance. That could be a massive form of addiction for people. It's that adrenaline rush.
For sure.
And there are many different types of substance abuse individuals who struggle with that. Oftentimes there is a chemical component to one's personality or who they are as a human being that they're predisposed to that addictive behavior and to that fix, whether it's dopamine, adrenaline, or a chemical intervention. And I'm curious, like from your perspective, how much of that is within our control?
I think that there's a predisposition, right? Like our affirmations, right? Like we need to be told that we're special. We need
Right.
to feel special. We need to be told that we're good, that we're important, right? There are certain people, right, that are like that adrenaline thing, like that they need to constantly feel that adrenaline. They're just predisposed to take risks. But I also think that there is, to say like we don't have control, would take away from like the whole concept of like that, why we work on ourselves, if this is just what it is. I think that there's like a way to harness it. I think that like for me, it was kind of shedding like all of like the surface level of it and digging deep to like understand what it all meant and how it all affects me. So then I can now utilize it as not necessarily like my weaknesses, but just who I am. Not necessarily looking at them as strengths and weaknesses, but looking at them as this is like how I embody all of these qualities. Some can be used in ways that will be negative if they are taken too high dose. And some, like, I don't want to lose those parts of me. Like, I don't want to lose the parts of me that are like, if I like recognition, right, I don't also want to be like, oh no, don't ever give me recognition. That's
Yeah.
something like, because I think that it's important to like to know that it's okay.
Yeah, I think one area I struggle with greatly is knowing and understanding the concept of everything within moderation. But then when you're somebody that has a history of substance abuse, I mean, you know this better than myself, than probably many of our listeners, is that you're supposed to essentially do your best to go cold turkey or wean off, but essentially you're not supposed to have any moderation. You're not supposed to taste that again, whatever that is for you. And I think I struggle with that personally, is that I'd like to never drink alcohol again, because
Right.
it's literally not good for my body.
Right.
It's not good for my body, but in moderation. But like, what if I just don't ever again? And I think for somebody like me who is constantly saying, I'm not addicted, but am I? Wouldn't I just stop drinking something if I knew it was bad for me?
Right.
So like, I don't know, maybe I'm over analyzing and playing these things up in my head too much, but I don't know. And I think that I struggle with this idea of everything in moderation, but also maybe not everything.
Right.
When you think about substance abuse, we are often typically analyzing the human being, the individual that is abusing it.
Mhm.
And most of the time, I think psychology and medicine is correct in why this person is using, in what it is that they are avoiding or compensating for, or how they're maybe dealing with life. I think also sometimes it just feels good. And like, whether it's alcohol or other drugs or any other risky behavior, adrenaline, entertainment, sometimes I think I struggle with accepting that there is a difference between dependency and getting a fix because your body or mind has conditioned itself to need it,
Right.
and how that differs from, yeah, but I just also like it.
Right. So I think that, to your point, like that it feels good. If you're doing it every once in a while because it feels good, like that makes sense. But now,
Some things.
right. But now, are you doing it because you feel bad, or you don't want to feel that? And now I'm doing this more and more and more.
Right.
Right. Like moderation is like, it's different for every person. And I think drug use and substance use and addiction in every form is so unique to each person. Why they do it, why they need more, why they need to be doing it is like, even with the negative consequences, why they continue to do it, even though the loss, the things that happen. But the interesting thing about it is like, why can't we do other things to feel good? Like, why does it need that I need to
Right.
put something in my body to make me feel good, instead of like, oh, I can't enjoy this Cubs game if I'm not having 4 beers?
That's a wonderful example, because we will look at the 4 beers at the Cubs game as normalized behavior, and that's okay.
Right.
When, what other context would you sit typically in that short of period of time and down 4 beers? And why do you need it? Well, we've also developed this association, this taste, right? It's like the taste of hot dogs or peanuts.
Right.
Associate. There is a Pavlovian experience there. And why do we have to go overboard? Why does it have to be like excess?
Right. So again, like to that point, like there were many activities where I had those like aha moments of like, wait a second, do I really like seeing these type of movies? Or only when I was high I really liked them because it made me laugh?
Right.
Or do I really like this type of music? Or did I only like going to those shows because I was high? And so there are certain things that you kind of came away with and you're like, you know what? I actually still really like that music. And there are certain things where I was like, I have never done that, like, since I've been sober, because I realized that it was the only thing. It wasn't about the music. It was about the activities that surrounded the
Well, it's
music.
about the whole experience.
Yeah.
That combined, every human being has their own shtick, has their own challenges, and has their own interests.
And that's why it's so hard to treat addiction, even whether mental health, like the results really vary so much, even though there are like, barometers and metrics to track success. After been doing this for a while, like it's clear that every patient client who leaves your care, like you may chart them, document them as like completion, or
Right.
but like completion to one person is so different to another person from like a humanistic level. You may go to detox and remove somebody's body of like that physical dependency of addiction, but then they go and it's like, well, what have you changed about your life
Right.
further than that?
Are there universal to any degree characteristics that you might track or score in order to say the likelihood of a rate of return or maybe failure?
Abstinence is one. There's a reason why we drug test, right? Because it's usually like the main barometer of how someone's doing. Have they maintained abstinence throughout their time in treatment? Is it the only component? Like, absolutely not. For me, it's usually like a level of engagement. What are they doing outside of here? They have their 3 hours of treatment. Do they go to meetings? Okay, if they don't go to meetings, do they have a therapist they see? If they're not seeing a therapist, are they changing their physical health? Are they changing their mental health? What are they doing? Or are they just going from here to there, but nothing in their life is changing?
So that's actually super interesting. How much awareness is required or expected about the individual's lifestyle and their activities and what they're doing in order to maintain that they're leading a life that's at least setting them up for success as opposed to risk?
Well, I think to me, it's really one of the more crucial aspects of it because, as I mentioned like before, like proximity, like I need that proximity to my patient's life to understand how to treat them the best way.
Right. I mean, a good example would be like, hey, remember that group of people you used to hang out with that caused you or influenced maybe bad decisions?
Right.
Maybe don't hang out with them anymore.
Right.
But there are probably other things too. Like maybe if you're doing activities that create a flow of serotonin, you're out taking walks, you're hiking, you're doing other things that behaviorally speaking, they could be good indications that you are succeeding in this fight.
So do you know who Johan Hari is?
Johan Hari?
Yeah. I mean, he's given a bunch of TED Talks.
No.
But he speaks about addiction. And one thing he says is that like the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. And he bases this off of an experiment that was done called the Rat Park experiment. And basically they put a rat in a cage and they gave him 2 bottles of water. It was a cocaine-filled bottle of water and regular water.
I'll bet I know which one the rat liked.
Yep, the cocaine bottle. So they basically said that, okay, if you give them the choice, they're going to go for the cocaine one. I guess years later, someone came along and was like, you know what? There's something flawed about this. Like, he's living a boring life in this cage.
Sure.
So they built up this rat park, had all the wheels, he had all these female rat, and they realized that almost never he went for the cocaine water.
Because there was other more healthy choices to supplement.
Right. There were ways for him to connect, find purpose that were beyond. And I think that that's like a major component too. It's like, we all want that community. We all want that purpose. Like, what are we waking up every day to do to find that thing in, a community? There's a lot of community there. Like, you meet people who are going through the same things. You can talk about things. You can go to dinner and have those sober experiences. Because like, I think what happens is if you're really serious about your addiction and getting treatment, you end up like avoiding all the things, right? We talk about triggers and warning signs, right? Okay, it's good. You're avoiding those things, but what are those things that you really liked? But like, you're not doing those things and, I don't have anybody to go to.
Right. How do you still go to the Cubs game without that dependency on the 4 beers?
Right. So, one would say, well, I hope you're really lucky if you have great supportive family and friends who are like, we're going to go to the game. We don't need to have beers with you, right? Like, we're going to meet you where you're at, dude. Like, cause we want to go to the game with you. That's that connection part, right? But if you don't have that, how do you recreate it? And a lot of times it's like, there's a lot of loss in early recovery, whether it's like people you meet in like who you went to treatment with, whether it's like the relationships you had who are now very different because those common interests are not there anymore. So what are you doing?
I imagine there's a period where some people are afraid to go out because they haven't had that exposure into society again yet.
Right.
Those early days and say, okay, I don't know what I'm going to run into here, so I may as well just avoid it all, which is not the answer. But I mean, having the sponsor as part of the program is imperative because first of all, you need to know that you have a lifeline. You have somebody that it's judgment free, that they're there to support you in any moment, whether it's just, I need to talk to somebody or I want to talk to somebody, or I'm literally at a crossroads right now and I need you to help walk me out of it.
Right.
Within social work, given that you're describing this proximity, this connection community, is there a way where we can predict certain behaviors where we see disconnection from adolescents and kind of teenagers and young adults that we can maybe identify somebody who might be at risk when it's not so obvious?
So I think it's hard, right? Because I think that like, you're, especially like young kids, adolescents, like even coaching high school kids, you can see certain things in them, but like, kids are resilient and kids grow out of things and kids change, drastically, or things happen. But I think for me, what's important as like a basketball coach, right? When I think of myself as like a mental health clinician and also a basketball coach, what do I want to hopefully achieve for the guys that I'm coaching as like in terms of like an interpersonal relationship? Is that communication, right? Is to gain that trust and proximity to somebody, to be like, this is what I'm noticing. Like, everything okay? What's going on at home? Like, what's going on over here? Those are the things that to me are like how you understand and find out what's going on with somebody, is to be able to be a trusting resource where, and it seems like in a time where like people are communicate way better over a screen than they do in real life. Like that communication, that's how you gain that proximity to someone's life to now understand what is really going on. And then when you have what's really going on, you can gain some sort of semblance of like, they're at risk for something like that. But if I don't know, if nothing's ever been communicated to me, and I'm just like looking off of how they interact like on the court or maybe in those small spaces, diagnosably, that doesn't feel like appropriate, because I have like such little context to, or proximity, as I would say. But if you become a person that someone can communicate with, and someone can have that, then you gain that insight that is so crucial to next steps.
It's not that we're looking for maybe specific behavior, but maybe a change in behavior.
It feels like it would be irresponsible to make judgments based on small sample sizes. Now, that doesn't mean like, hey, if I see a behavior that's alarming, that doesn't mean I don't like do more research or
if you smell like alcohol, I don't have to necessarily give you the benefit of the doubt that maybe you ran into somebody who was holding a beverage.
Right. So, when people ask me all the time, like, oh, like what, I'm worried that these kids are drinking. And I'm like, I was like, these kids, all the kids, how often are they drinking? Like, what are we going to do about it? I was like, let's talk about it. Like, that's my thing. It's like, let's talk about why are you drinking? Why do you feel the need to drink when you know it's wrong? Or why are you like teaching about the consequences of these things, but not in a way of like right or wrong, yes and no, black and white, but that to give them like that they're now being like made aware of, like, because sometimes I remember my mom would say this to me all the time. She's like, if I ever catch you smoking a cigarette, I'm gonna do something bad. And I'd be like, and then like I remember thinking about that, and I was like, and then the first time she caught me smoking and I was 19 years old, she didn't do that really bad thing. And I was like, this is so disappointing. I thought I was going to quit smoking when you said you were going to do that really bad thing.
Well, what that does is it breaks down maybe like your trust in, are there actual consequences, or when you say something, is that actually true? One of the things I remember learning years ago is within the context of parenting, when you have to repeat yourself, you shouldn't, that third, fourth, or fifth time, you shouldn't say, I'm serious now.
Right.
Because what you're actually saying is, every time before this, I wasn't serious. Or the more I say it, if I have to repeat myself 3 times every single time, they know the first 2 times don't matter. And so, especially when the stakes are high, it is disappointing, because you want to trust that you understand the dynamics of the relationship and what they say is true.
Right.
Even if you don't want to be punished, you do want the integrity of knowing what you think you know to be true.
Right. Like you want to know, like, again, if you're going to tell me all like terrible dangers of something, right, and all of a sudden I don't experience those terrible dangers, man, you think I'm going to believe when someone tells me all other terrible dangers?
What else is not true and what else is possible?
Right. So, I think there was this guy, Chris Herron, who was this famous Boston Celtics player who was, copying drugs from his dealer, like before starting lineups. Like, he's a great speaker now. And they asked him, like, what would you say to your daughter if, she came home drunk from a party? And he said that one thing is like, why did you feel like you had to be anyone other than yourself? Why couldn't you walk into that party and feel confident enough that I don't need to drink to be cool, right? To enjoy the party, to enjoy my friends? The answer may be like, I simply wanted to know what it felt like to be drunk.
Yeah, I think curiosity is important to acknowledge that exists. That's important, especially at that age, because a lot of kids who drink, they don't have the taste for it yet. And so they're drinking because they're forcing themselves to, and they're forcing themselves to for a number of reasons, potentially. And curiosity is one of them. And the message that he's saying is really important and good. And I want to push against it in that sometimes I just want to feel included, and everyone was drinking. So therefore I'm also drinking. So I feel included. Not saying that that's an excuse, but there's validity there behind why someone might make a decision that's bad.
Validity, and also understanding why I need to feel, why that would make me included. What is going on with this group of friends that I have, these people in my life that like, let's say if we were to give them like a truth serum, and they were to say like, I actually really didn't want to drink.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to at all. I actually like was kind of scared to a little bit, but I wanted to feel included. And that was my overriding factor in the situation. Then that would make me sad as someone like hearing this being like, oh, well, like, man, why did you want to be so included if you were like actually scared? You didn't want to, and you just wanted to do the other thing, but you drank because that thing about being included is like, oh, if I don't drink, they're not going to think that I'm this.
Yeah.
That's where I try to get to like the bottom of where I hope to build those relationships, because that's important to me. If it's curiosity, someone's like, I was just curious and I want to smoke a cigarette for the first time, or I want to smoke weed to see how I felt.
Right.
Curiosity is totally normal.
It's encouraged.
Right.
All right, let's get to the bottom of it then.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example, because age, is non-discriminatory.
Right.
Okay. This is less than a week ago. I've been trying to cut down on my alcohol consumption for the last 2 years, actively for the last 2 years.
Right.
And I've successfully done that to a degree.
Right.
I was diagnosed recently with like an autoimmune disease.
Wow.
And among the many things that I was advised is like anti-inflammatory food, including, but not limited to, alcohol consumption.
Right.
So I am cutting out a lot. Another is just like, I need to set a good example for my kids. And if I'm behaving in any way that is unflattering, well, that's not a good role model.
Right.
So this is less than a week ago. I'm at a barbecue, and I wasn't interested in drinking at all.
Right.
Someone hands me a small cup and says, "Here, I already poured this for you." And for some reason, I didn't have it in me to say, "No, thanks, I'm good." I think I drank half of it, and then I disposed the rest of it discreetly, which also hurts. I'm like, "Oh, it's good bourbon," but I did. At least I was able to, like, I threw out half of it because I'm like, I don't need all this. But I also felt weird about saying no thanks. I don't know why.
I think it's interesting, but I think what is interesting is like at first I heard you saying it, like depersonalizing, like you shouldn't be drinking this much at this point. Like this, you shouldn't be doing this. Like I didn't hear like as much as I would have been like, it felt like, okay, this is a general thing. Like, yeah, we probably shouldn't be drinking this much. But what was interesting was like at first it was you, and then when you start to notice, like, let's say like the negative consequences of drinking with an autoimmune disease and these type of things, like you were almost kind of coming to that realization of it becoming like a you versus an I. And now I think that the motivation is like you're halfway there, which is like makes sense why you drink half a glass, right? I'm recognizing the positives.
Yeah.
I'm recognizing that I want to be a good example. I know that I don't want to be drinking as much, but it's like, what does as much mean, right? We have a little glass, half a little glass, still there. Like, why can't I fully say, no, thank you, I'll give it to somebody else? As if like there would be something wrong with like turning down, because it was already poured for you. Oh man, I'm gonna be a bad guest, right? Like,
right.
And I think that is interesting that once we like really make it something, it's like it's like something I learned about, say, like dieting. Why do diets fail, right? They say typically it fails because like I set a goal, 20 pounds. Oh, this wedding's coming up. I need to fit in my tux, all these things. Wedding happens, 20 pounds is gone. Give it up.
Yeah, you achieve your short-term goal.
Right. Instead of saying, I want to live a healthy lifestyle. I want to be a healthy person. That is continuous, is ongoing. It's like, if I want to be healthier, right, there's a lot of things that entails.
Yeah.
And if one of those short goals is that 20 pounds, then it becomes this continuous thing where like you add things. I know somebody who like cuts out an addiction every single year. Like, it was substance use, but like it'll be like coffee one year.
Wait, hold on. the ones that this individual is cutting out, are they new ones to replace that past one, or are they among the many addictions that this individual has had for many years?
Right. So like let's say they went to treatment for substance use, right? So like any mind altering,
Sure.
right, chemical. And then it's like every year I'm going to take out something else that is like maybe hard, like maybe
But like the coffee, is the coffee what they got addicted to after the substance abuse before as just the next thing?
no, I don't think
Or
it
it's
was
just like I'm
yeah.
now noticing all these other things in my life that I have been
Yes,
addicted to,
yes.
and I'm
I
gonna
think it
slowly.
was like an introspective,
Yeah.
like reflection type of thing where it was like amongst all of these like behaviors that I did remove, I still have like negative ones. Right. Like for me, like I know I'm addicted to coffee. I would love to, but like that sounds like a goal. Right. It's like so it's like, I think it was chocolate one year for that guy, and it was just cool to like see that yes, we have these goals. We're living a life of in recovery, but like it doesn't stop. It's continuous. That's why it's even in the program, whether you're an AA person or you're not, it's like this thing about doing the next right thing. You're constantly in this continuous lifestyle of being better. Like there's no finality to it. It's like this journey.
Well, that supports what I said earlier, that oftentimes this is the addictive personality of this individual. Whatever substance or other addiction that individual struggled with was just whatever that flavor was for that person then. And it could be many, many other things.
Right.
Like it could be healthy things too. Like I'm addicted to running, not me.
Yeah.
But like I'm addicted to exercise. I'm addicted to dieting, and that could end up being bad for you too. But the point is that like this person is in the spirit of this podcast, this person learned new skills in how to mitigate, manage, and overcome.
Yeah.
And then is applying those same skills for other parts that they deem not necessary in their life to hopefully for the betterment.
Right. I'll tell you what, let's say social work in general. I think social work is a concept. It is a fantasy. It's an ideal.
Tell me more.
So social work is basically like dismantling systems and making things more equitable and an ideal, but it's only like framework that doesn't teach you specific skills to achieve goals. It teaches you about things that are wrong in the world, and then like, all right, team, us together will hopefully change it. It's like my big pushback on it is that it's like this nice concept of like, let's defund all these things, let's redistribute the funds. But we're never really taught of like, what are specific things that we should be doing to actually achieve these goals? So it ends up becoming a lot of people who are very strong in their opinions, but not strong in their solutions.
All right. If you're rewriting the playbook for social work, what chapters would you add? What information would you put into that?
I think that it would be like understanding systems altogether, right? Like it takes this account of saying like, this is oppressive but doesn't say like why it's oppressive and why it would be impossible to actually stop in today's like things are achieved when there's mutual benefit to stuff, right? I came into this program as someone who I would define myself as liberal. It's made me my conviction even more about like building relationships, communicating, having disagreements, having deep, meaningful connections to understand what it is that is going on in people's lives so that I can actually feel that and understand like, whoa, okay, now like I had this opinion of something and now it's shifting a little bit and now I'm hearing more and I'm learning more.
How much of your program are you doing to serve those that are in need, and how much is it influencing sort of your continuation on sobriety and being surrounded by this?
So I think 0% of it was because I wanted to be a social worker. It was because I wanted to, what being a social worker would provide me in terms of being a clinician. I could do more. I have access to more. I could influence more positively in the world that I hope to aspire. And then again, because I think that it's important to like not go into places being like, I'm not going to learn anything and this is just for the degree and I'm going to have it. Like I was open-minded.
Well, I doubt you haven't learned anything.
Oh no. Yeah. Oh, I've learned almost so much, but so much of it has been based on the human interaction. Like how people like talk about their issues, their life, their situation, and like what it takes, and also like the human mind about like all these people are dealing with these things and like how capable are they to actually work with people who really need the help.
Right. It's not just the skills that you've gained, it's the
Right. It's like
perspective.
almost people are working through their trauma
Yeah.
by trying to help things. I came into that program being 10 years sober and having like done a lot of that work prior to coming there. Like there's still progress that I'm trying to work on myself.
All of us.
Right. But I think that a large part of it was like, I had also been working in the field for 5 years. Like a lot of people just came from a BSW program and now are going to be social workers in a year from now, as opposed to me being a substance abuse counselor and then being like, oh, I could use this extra credential because it would really help me.
Sure.
Or
It's the
dealing-
credentials you needed to actually drive impact. You needed the credentials in order to not just learn the skills,
Right.
but to also give you access and the ability for you to drive impact in what you want to do.
Right. And I think that like, you know, climate is always shifting, right? Like, and I think that it's like sometimes you can't just be bogged down. Like I still need to go to work, right? Like I still need to go to work and I still need to treat patients. But if I'm so, if things are constantly acutely affecting me day to day on like the global environment, socioeconomic type of stuff, I need to be able to like work on my stuff and be able to go to work.
Mhm.
And I'm learning in these programs, even the lingo is different. Like where I'm at it, they call themselves a generalist practice. And most places are like clinical practice. So not only are they not teaching us the clinical skills, like, you know, different modalities, they're just teaching us theories about things and not teaching us how to actually impact positive change. We should know about all the things that are happening in this world, but not a place of like actually teaching me how to do the things that you're telling me to do, right?
Okay, so then I guess, is that any different than many undergraduate or graduate degrees in that people coming out of college or any kind of apprenticeship or something, that the actual hands-on real world experience is vastly different than what you may have assumed it was going to be, or what you were taught, or the skills that you and knowledge you gained during your coursework?
I think that your internship, your practicum, your clinical hours, like that's where you're going to get, you know, the nitty gritty. You're going to get down to business. You're going to get to actually work and do the things that like you're being taught in school. Again, because like if you're just going to give me like a PowerPoint slide on cognitive behavioral therapy, that's not teaching it either. But there are ways to apply skills, right? And then use those applied skills to then build upon it in your actual workplace experience. That doesn't mean that you're going to expect it to go into co-facilitating a group and like be good at running a group on, like on say on cognitive behavioral therapy. But that's where you gain your practice, but you can't go into it. Like I can't just all of a sudden be like, oh, I wasn't taught about this and I'm going to go do a CBT group. You know, there's a way to apply these things in the classroom. But again, they'll tell you that we're not a clinical program. We're a generalist practice. And if you ask them what that means, they'll tell you something like, oh, we are an eclectic approach to treating everyone.
Sure.
Which you can make your own definition of what that means.
How do you think other individuals going through this program who haven't gone through that personal struggle, how do they look at you perhaps differently?
I think that there's definitely an aesthetic. I am way more equipped to handle things from a variety of ways than I would now. My worldview is wider. My bandwidth to handle criticism.
Yeah.
You know, I think like the greatest gift that I would say I probably got from sobriety was because like I knew that at some point the community was going to know that I was, you know, in recovery. Like that shame of like losing that helped me tremendously to accept feedback and take feedback in a way that is a asset and is such a big skill that people are not telling me things to put me down. They're telling me things to help me grow. Like this idea of positive intent. Yes, there are some people who are really trying to hurt you, right? There are. It's inevitable. But if I always think that way, if I'm always assuming that someone is telling me something for some negative reason, that is so harmful to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm never hearing the message. I'm just hearing a tone. And by being that person that's like not going to be defensive about it, I now learn that like, wow, people care about me and they tell me about things that that I'm not doing right, and I can hear them.
That is a huge skill.
I think it's everything.
Accepting, first of all, seeking
Yeah.
critical feedback is its own thing.
I mean, you see as a parent on the team, right? I always
Right.
put this thing out like, please like have this conversation. And I know, like, again, I'm not a parent, so you have to like have context. And I would ask, John about the coaching thing, and he would say, "You don't understand how parents think. This is how parents think. Like, if they're not going to come to you because it's going to affect the kids' playing time."
Well, right. Everyone's always worried about how's this going to impact. Same thing like going to a teacher or an
Right.
administrator and complaining about something at a school and worrying, well, is the teacher now going to be biased against my child? Is it going to come and affect them? And same thing with like, so Jeremy, you coach JV high school basketball.
Yeah.
I'm curious what kind of skills you're bringing from your social work into your coaching.
Right. Well, I think one is thinking about like the proximity to my guys. Like, I think that when I was coaching varsity, I was like hyper competitive. Like I want to win, like I won as a player. And again, when you're dealing with like varsity level players, there's not as much as instruction as need to be taught, right? So like you can kind of like not need to work out on the basics, and then you kind of jump in. And hopefully, like you're running the plays and they're playing hard, and you can do these things. When you start coaching JV, it's like, wow, you're realizing that like, okay, we need to work on some fundamentals here. We need to have some patience. It's not about the wins and the losses. It's about growing and doing these things while also like wanting to win.
How much of your coaching is about basketball versus character building?
Oh, I think it's at this point, I would say it's like 50-50, because I realize that like I can't be engaged as a basketball coach without being engaged in their lives, like without understanding, getting to know these guys as like human beings, rather than like seeing them as like, or just a basketball team.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's like a hard dynamic to build, but I think that's the rewarding part. It's like you learn that each of these players are unique. They work uniquely as a group, and they work uniquely independently. And how do you help them become the best basketball players they can be, while also maturing as young men who are learning how to advocate for their needs, right? How to communicate. My goal is always that like they have a great time, right? A great experience with each other, that they're growing, that even if you're the last guy on the team, right? That this is a fun experience, because it should be. It should be about camaraderie and like, you're getting to practice with these guys. And I know practice isn't like the fun part, but it should be.
It could be.
Right. It could be. And I think that it's the skills that I bring there. It's like, for me, it's that accepting that feedback. I think there was a part I was like pretty rigid. Let's go in there. We're going to do our thing. If they complain, it's on them. If they're not working hard, it's on them. And I was like, well, why aren't they working hard? Like, what's making it that they don't want to play hard, or, they don't want to work on this, or they're not like, I put the onus more on myself to be a basketball coach. Okay, if they're not getting this right, or this play isn't working, like why? How do I breaking it down? Like, oh, maybe they don't know how to set a pick. Did I teach them how to set a pick? How much time did I put on setting a pick?
It's funny. I like they used the term fundamentals earlier, and then you immediately talked about them as human beings, and communication, and fundamentals aren't just dribbling and shooting. It's very much about that camaraderie, about the communication, about being in it for the right reasons and feeling like you're part of a team, not an independent individual star. And that it's such an important part of their personal childhood and character development in this role that you play. Earlier in the conversation, you talked a little bit for a second, and I didn't want to interrupt your flow, but
yeah,
you talked about having conversations with kids and what that's like. Somebody might call you and say, my kid is suffering, or this is happening in this population, this community, this school. And you're either asked for advice or even maybe to come in and just have a conversation one-on-one or with a group setting. How receptive are kids to things like substance abuse at a young age? And let's call it like high school years.
I mean, I can tell you exactly how it was. I mean, there's an organization that asked me to come in and speak. It wasn't so much about my personal story. It was like they had a curriculum, and it was kind of like teach the curriculum. I saw, like, even when they got to a Q&A part of it, the kids weren't interested about the facts that they had just learned.
No, I was probably glossed over.
Right? They were like, they would have much rather have heard a personal story from me.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that either one would have been like more beneficial or the other. I think that it's easy for a parent to worry about substance use, because like they have the experience of life to know that it's a serious thing to worry about. If I don't know, proximity, if I've never known anybody who has had addiction issues, if I don't know anybody who's ever experienced something like addiction or what that means, it's very hard for me to conceptualize what that even means. Like, how would I even get there? Right. Like this seems so far away.
It's abstract.
Right.
It's not relatable.
But this is why I find it to be so important for me to speak about it anytime I can. Because we always hear about the dangers of addiction and how bad it is. But rarely hear about like what overcoming it looks like, what it means to live a positive life, what it means growth, right? Like to me, it's the biggest asset of my life. The greatest thing that's ever happened to me was because I struggled with addiction. So with players, it's like, it's not about being like, go to coach and he's going to tell you, don't do this. It's going to be really terrible. Yeah, I can tell you the terrible things that happen for sure. But that's not what's going to stop you. What may stop you is that you have a moment where you're in a position like earlier about, your friends are drinking and I don't really want to do it. And I'm thinking about doing it. That I have a person that I can call and be like, coach, what would you do in this situation? What should I do? I'm not feeling a certain way about it, right? If I had a conversation with my team, if I had to find out my team was drinking, I would say to them, listen, I can't help you if you get in trouble at school and you're drinking in school. Here's what's dangerous about it, but also why are you doing it, right? What is it that makes you want to do it? And they say, hey, coach, I'm just curious.
Do you get satisfying answers though when they say, why are you doing it? And forget about curiosity.
But again, what is satisfying?
Meaning like,
satisfying.
Let me give you an example of dissatisfactory answers, which would be things like, I don't know, or other people are doing it, or what's the big deal? What's the problem? Right. So those to me, though, those are classic answers to almost any subject matter. Almost anything.
Right.
Like, I don't know. And so a satisfying answer might be something like, I like the way it makes me feel.
Yeah.
A satisfying answer doesn't mean that you like the answer. It means that it satisfies the question. Like, why are you doing this? Satisfying answer might be something like, I started because I was curious and I'm not sure why I keep doing it. Or I feel the peer pressure, not just everyone's doing it. It's literally acknowledging that I'm not sure I want to, but I feel the pressure.
Right.
And therefore I'm doing it, even though I know it's wrong.
Right. So again, with satisfying, the difference between, they say to me, that satisfying answers helps me formulate interventions. If someone says to me, the peer pressure is just so intense, right? I'm thinking about environment. What is the environment that this person is constantly feeling that he has intense peer pressure? Someone's like to me, oh, I really like the way it makes me feel. I'm like, okay, what's going on in this kid's life that he needs to feel buzzed for him to feel good? Because
also, I mean, I don't think it has to be binary. I don't think it has to be zero sum in that, like, I can't feel good unless, but it could be, yeah, things are good in my life and I feel good about all these other things. And this also makes me feel good.
Right. Then there's actual consequences.
Right.
Right. If you love basketball and let's say like the school has a drug testing policy, I can't help you here.
If you got to the point where you're doing this, you know the rules, the school found out about it, and now you're off the team, it's too late.
Right.
At least for being a player on the team.
Right.
It's not too late
Right.
for seeking help and for me to support you otherwise.
Right. So, again, so it's like, then it's like, how much do you like basketball? And then like, if you told me I love basketball more than anything in this world, but yet you keep.
Is that effective? When you put it into the context of, if you keep doing this, or if you're found to do it even once, it could risk or jeopardize your ability to have access to these things that are healthy and you do like doing. Do you find kids at these ages, their frontal lobe is not fully developed yet? I mean, I'm told it's till 25, but I think mine is still developing. Do you think that they can actually make that connection between the risk and reward or consequence?
I'm not sure in terms of like, because again, there's not enough data that's been.
And we're talking about general. We're using general, like overarching themes.
I think is what I find to be interesting is that the divulgence of information from my players varies from like, there are some, serious things that people have discussed with me, like a breakup, right? Wanted to talk about a breakup, to like totally just never giving me a straight answer. Like it's clear that they just don't want to tell me anything. It varies. You start seeing things, right? Like, how about patterns, limited time trials, things that are going on where you're like, okay, I'm going to look at this and I'm going to see if this is happening all the time. If this is just one practice, bad weekend,
right?
What's going on at home? But what I stressed, and it's important, is the parents. They have such insight to their kids.
They also have biases. They have blinders sometimes.
For sure. But again, this is what I'm saying. Like, I will tell a parent my personal opinion, not out of like, because I'm not.
No, it's an observation. You can say like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Let me know if there's something else I should know about at home. Or if you were unaware of this, maybe watch for it.
I'll see, because I'll tell you a great lesson that happened once. I had a kid whose father was like the father who would just yell at
on the sideline of the court.
Not yell at the coach, but just like yell at his son. And I was like, in my head, my assumption was he can handle me being a maniac because he's got the biggest maniac in the crowd. I was expecting that I could coach him the hardest. And it had to be a player on the team came to me at some point and was like, no, coach, like he needs some TLC. And that really shifted. Again, this is that feedback part, that defensiveness part is like this understanding that I need to open those lines of communication from wherever they come. Again, the sorting through the data is different, but the more data I have, the more I can come to conceptualize what I have in front of me. Right? Have you ever seen like FL, I would show you like what a good like case conceptualization looks like, right? There are good ones and there are bad ones. And a good one doesn't mean that it was, a dissertation paper. A good one is that it has the details that are important to the situation. I need to know what happened prior to the fact, what led up to these type of things. So instead of being like, I'm the coach, no, I'm going to coach him how I want to coach him. When a player who spent his past 10 years in school with his best friend is telling me he needs some love, I'd be a fool not to take it. So too when I come to parents and I say, just tell me what's going on. Like, if it's a playing time thing, we could agree to disagree. We're not here to agree.
Right.
But tell me what you're seeing. Oh, coach, you're just, you're really, really hard on him. Tell me more. Like, how do you know I'm hard on him?
Right. For all you know, they come home and the kid feels down when he's home because of your interaction and you're unaware of that, out an hour, 2 hours later.
Right. There's a player on the team last year where I heard that he told his parents that coach doesn't like me.
Right. And I'm certain that that's not the truth at all.
I like them all. Like right. They're all great kids, but when they said that, I was like, why does he think I don't like him?
Right. What am I saying or doing that's leading him to believe that
right.
I'm not liked by my coach? Kids have that same experience in school a lot. We all know this, like growing up ourselves or hearing it from other people. This teacher doesn't like me.
Right.
It's probably not true. Now that teacher might not like your shenanigans.
I think,
but it's different from not liking you.
But that's what I'm saying. I think patience. If I'm a human being, we have limited amount of patience. When I lose my patience, it's on me to do something about it, not to have a kid think I don't like him because I chewed him out. I learned that because I would do that. I'm a fiery coach. But if I have a moment like that, I make it a personal mission of myself to speak with that kid personally after the game, because I don't want that narrative to be out there. That coach took me out of the game and he was barking at me because of this mistake, and he hates me now. I'm never going to play. He doesn't like me. It can't be like that just because my patience with them in a moment changes. Because if you're in school, right, if you think your teacher hates you and you're like, then you become the kid who's, okay, teacher's going to send me out again.
Right.
Teacher's always at...
Well, self-fulfilling, right? You start behaving that way because you're told this is who I am, so therefore that's how I'm going to behave.
Right.
I will definitely rise to that level if you want me to.
100% because I'm a kid.
Yeah. In sports is even harder. Not to put down teachers, it's a hard job. Sports is even harder. Why? And I say that because it's an environment where we are fueling, we are seeking that heightened level of energy and emotions. We're doing nothing to avoid it. In fact, we're trying to create it. We want that high energy. We want those emotional investments.
Right.
And so we're creating this pressure cooker. You put anyone in those situations, you have to be Phil Jackson Zen to not lose your temper. And even he lost his temper.
Right. I think showing emotion, right, is important, right? It shows my engagement. Like, I don't know how to be a basketball coach who's not highly charged and emotionally, and maybe a little bit loud out there, but it's important that that's directed correctly and appropriately so that it's not ever meant to be demeaning towards my players. It doesn't mean that you can't be corrective, Your job as a coach, you're supposed to correct them.
No,
Right.
it's critical and constructive feedback.
Right. And again, if it comes out as like, what are you doing out there? Okay, well, that's really not helpful to say to somebody, what do you do? Oh, there's a million things you could be doing, right? But like you say those things, and it doesn't always mean that you're just like trying to be, like
we all do that. It's the shorthand. I didn't have the moment to think of a more constructive way to say what I really wanted to say. So I'm just going to say this thing. Do I really think that this person doesn't know how to use his turn signal when he's driving? No, but I'm going to make the assumption right now. Why? Because it's easy. But it's a little bit lazy.
I think to like the self-fulfilling prophecy thing, right? Like one of those things that, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, like
Incredible
that book changed my life. But there's also another talk that he has where he talks about something called overshooting the runway, right? It's like when pilots land, they do something called overshooting the runway because the aerodynamics, like you'll go like this, but then eventually you'll land where you're supposed to do. So he says, like to that same concept, when we take people at face value, we make them less. When we believe in what they can become, they find their middle ground. And it's like an interesting thing because my whole life was like, oh, take people at face value, take people at face value. Like that's something that I constantly heard as like, this is how I should approach and see people. But no, that makes more sense to me. I need to believe that people can be better, that there's growth always, that they can be really like special. And if I encourage people to do that, maybe they find that extra gear that they wouldn't have had they been just told like, hey, okay, you're being annoying, get out of class.
Right.
I go for a 5-minute walk. Like if I'm always perceived as the kid with ADD and I'm super hyper and they're just constantly, instead of being like, it's 10 minutes left in the class, you can do this. Man. I got you. You can do this. Just stay with me for a bit.
Yeah. Positive encouragement.
Right. But like also like being realistic, recognizing that I know it's hard for you to sit still. I know it's hard for me. Like, let's do this. What do you need to make this experience better? And they, like I said, they may not give you a satisfying answer, but maybe eventually they do. Maybe they eventually feel like the trust that they have in you, that they're being seen. And I've seen it happen where now you're asked to be a part of like collaboration teams with workers in the school, their personal therapists. So that like now we have releases of information signed that now I can be connected to like my player's therapist. Like that's cool.
Yeah. That's where real impact can happen. You're doing great work. And on behalf of everybody in society, I thank you and everybody else who's doing this important work out there to care for others and to take your experience and to use it in such a positive way to influence the direction of young minds, but also anybody at any age. I think it's really important work. And I just want to say thank you for being here.
Appreciate you. Good man, Noah. Good man.
I want to thank Jeremy for being a guest on today's episode of Transferable Skills, and to you, our listeners, for joining us on this episode. Remember, the skills you've gained can take you anywhere. Until next time, keep exploring those transferable skills.